Following the British conquest of Canada, the course of Canadian history changed abruptly. Canadians, Indigenous peoples, and the British themselves worked together to reach what could be described as an uneasy accommodation that still endures today. Let's go to Gallery 2, which covers the history of Canada between 1763, the British conquest of Canada and the end of the 7 Years' War, all the way to the start of the First World War. The stories are told from the perspectives of British, French settlers, and Indigenous peoples.
In the mid-1860s, politicians from separate British colonies in North America devised a plan to form a new federal union, a confederation. They believed the confederation would enable the colonies to better defend themselves and that it would facilitate trade. Their efforts resulted in the creation of the Dominion of Canada on July 1, 1867. The popular vision behind Confederation was supplied by Thomas D'Arcy McGee. During his youth in Ireland, McGee became involved in efforts to free his native country from British rule, and he even promoted armed revolution. Yet, after immigrating to the province of Canada, McGee developed a profound respect for British-style parliamentary government, believing that it could sustain a great new northern nation in which minorities would enjoy liberty and tolerance. Elected to the Assembly in 1857, McGee became famous for his impassioned writings and speeches in favor of Confederation. But McGee's renunciation of armed revolution led many Irish immigrants to see him as a traitor. On April 7, 1868, he was shot and killed in Ottawa, not far from where I'm standing now. This revolver was found in the pocket of Patrick James Whelan, who was arrested within hours of the assassination. It was later used to convict Whelan, but doubts about his guilt have long persisted. Whelan protested his innocence right up to the gallows, and although he admitted that he knew who had committed the crime, he never provided a name. This portrait of McGee by Frederick Marlett Bell Smith was commissioned by McGee's friends in honor of his 43rd birthday. Sadly, McGee didn't live to see it. He was assassinated just 6 days before his birthday. The portrait has remained in his family ever since, and it was loaned to the museum by his great-great-grandson, D'Arcy Quinn. In the late 1870s and early 1880s, land rights became an urgent concern for the Métis people on the western prairies. Responding to the near extinction of the bison and the steady influx of settlers, the Métis urged the Canadian government to recognize their Indigenous rights to the lands that they occupied. They sent dozens of petitions to Ottawa, but these were all ignored. Finally, in the spring of 1885, Métis leader Louis Riel established a provisional government, with himself as president and the celebrated bison hunter Gabriel Dumont as military leader. The Canadian government responded with swift and overwhelming force, sending 3,000 troops to the west and mobilizing 500 local Northwest Mounted Police and 2,000 settler volunteers. Canadian forces crushed the resistance in less than 2 months. Charged with high treason, Riel was tried in a Regina courtroom in late July 1885. A jury of 6 men, all settlers of British descent, found him guilty, and the presiding magistrate sentenced him to death. Appeals for mercy came across North America and Europe, but the Canadian government refused to change the sentence. Riel was hanged at Regina on November 16, 1885. This robe was purportedly worn by Magistrate Hugh Richardson when he presided over the trial. It is a barrister's robe. It is not a judge's robe. Richardson would not officially become a judge until the creation of the Supreme Court of the Northwest Territories in 1886. Since the time of Riel's trial, many have questioned the authority of a humble magistrate to preside over a treason trial and to impose a death sentence. And many have seen the dismissal of Riel's appeals as a further miscarriage of justice.
St. Onufri's Ukrainian Catholic Church is the largest artifact in the Canadian History Hall. It is a consecrated church and a testament to how newcomers to Canada adapted and reaffirmed important traditions in establishing communities on the prairies in the early 20th century.
Over 170,000 Ukrainians came to Canada between 1891 and 1914. Like many immigrant groups, they strove to adapt and maintain their distinctive cultural, linguistic, and religious traditions in Canada. St. Onufrius was built in phases between 1915 and 1928 in Barrage, northeast of Edmonton, Alberta, and renovated periodically by the parish over the next 30 years. It provided the space where Ukrainian Catholics could follow the devotional practices and the liturgical cycles that structured their lives. By the 1960s, the parish had merged with another church in nearby Smoky Lake, and the church fell into disuse. In the mid-1990s, it was donated to the museum, dismantled board by board, transported to Gatineau, and rebuilt in the museum's Canada Hall.